Hi, Steve. So I'm glad to have a chat with you today. You're known as the master connector. I'd love to hear more about how you came to that and what does that mean?
Absolutely. Well, Nicole, thank you for having me on here today. It's an honor and a privilege to be with you. Yeah, so I have a pretty crazy background. Started my first company out of college in advertising, did that for a lot of years, transitioned into technology, then consulting. I have a karate studio. I had a karate studio. I've done a lot of different things, and over the years, want to beginning mentored by a very successful entrepreneur who took me on under his wing and got me on a path of self-development, books, audios and networking, and started a path of kind of growing a network. And today I've got 17,000 contacts on my phone and 17,000 LinkedIn connections and growing quickly. And I found myself when I do a lot of networking, people want to put you in a cute little box when they ask you what you do. He's an attorney, she's a CPA, he's a plumber, et cetera. And I don't fit in that cute box. And when people would ask me what I do and I would tell them, I'd often hear back, I don't get it. I'm like, just call me the master connector. And that name just seemed to stick. So yeah, that was it. I mean, master connector for me means, number one, I've got a large, connections, right? I've got a lot of people that I know, a lot of people on my network, but also connecting authentically is another big topic I love to talk about. I do speaking. It's another piece of what I do. I do speaking. I've got a LinkedIn live show. And so I talk about connecting authentically. So that's another piece of being a master connector, how to connect authentically. I know you and I, Nicole, we connected initially through networking through LinkedIn. And then the third area is really leveraging that network that I have and becoming a connector and, connecting dots with people and that kind of thing. So the master connector essentially was born.
Okay, awesome. And I hear this so often. There's about a billion trillion different coaches out there. Well, there's a business coach, there's a coach for public speaking, there's a coach. There's a coach for just about anything.
Sure.
And there's a trainer for just about anything. So if you were to narrow it down and just explain, like, who is your client? Do you work with individuals? Do you work with entrepreneurs? Do you work with companies? And how and what do you do? So we know you're a great connector. Now, what's the next step? What do you do?
So I'm kind of like a cat, Nicole. I have like not 9 lives, but like 5 lives. Okay. So if we're talking about what I do as a consultant, I work with mid-sized to large companies. I help them. I'm a business automation consultant. I help them streamline and automate how they communicate and connect with their clients, leveraging artificial intelligence with hardware and software. And so that's one piece of my life. As a speaker, I've had colleges have me speak. I've had companies. I've done lunch and learns at companies. I've been asked to speak at events, keynotes. So that could be broad across the board. I've got a LinkedIn Live broadcast, as I mentioned, right? So we're Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do happen to have a couple of sponsors on our show. So that's another piece of my life. And I've got several entrepreneurial projects that I'm working on as well. I dabbled in real estate and investment property stuff, kind of got out of that game, but I've got my hands in other projects. So that's takes up another part of my life. And then I like to travel as well. So there's a lot of different aspects of my life. So that's why also Master Connector is a lot easier than trying to go through 16 different things that I do, none of which kind of relate, but they all relate in terms of Master Connector, Hope that helps.
Okay, no, that's great. That's like a full answer. We're going to have to rewind to get all the little tidbits in there. Now, I just wanted to ask you about cold calling for a second. I know that, with networking and events and doing a lot of stuff online, social media, right? Many people, I'm a very big proponent of cold calling. I have a cold calling service, right?
Sure.
But not everybody believes in that anymore. So what's your take on that?
I think there's a time and a place for that, right? And I think that from a standpoint of, and I still call on people, I reach them on the phone, I reach out to them through LinkedIn, I reach out via email for my consulting stuff, right? And so yeah, there's something to be said about reaching out. I just believe that the misconception of the cold calling, I find like there's more, for me, there's been more effective ways to do it. For example, when I'm reaching out to somebody, I'm not trying to pitch them on on a product or service. I'm just trying to get an appointment. I'm trying to establish if there's maybe a need, and maybe to be able to help to kind of see if there's something we could do together to collaborate. And I find that the heavy-handed pitch is a long road to hoe, if you will. So cold calling, I mean, I still to this day, I will occasionally, if I'm trying to reach somebody, I might drop in their office. I've done that too, but it's not a hard sell approach, right? I think there's, today there's so many different ways that we could touch people. A phone call is one way, an email is another way. Trying to reach them on social media is another way. Going out, connecting with people through networking, whether it be traditional networking events, finding out how, there's a common person there, or connecting them with them through social media, or even maybe a mutual connection and an introduction that way. So there's so many ways to connect with somebody to eventually have an opportunity to really speak with them. But I believe my approach, and I love the book that I think we talked about a little bit, Ditch the Pitch, right? Which is when you want to be more conversational. And so when I'm talking to people, I'm trying to ask enough questions to see if there's some challenges, some needs, some wants, desires. What's keeping this business owner up at night? What are their biggest challenges that they're dealing with? Get an understanding of that, dig into that deep. And then if I do feel like I have a way I can help them, by the way, the way I can help them might be, I can introduce them to somebody that I know, nothing to do with what I do, right? But if there's some areas that I can help them with, then I could say, hey, let's, on a follow-up meeting, let me come back and maybe do a demo, or let's do a proof of concept. Let's talk about, let me show you kind of how we may be able to help. It's a big line I've learned lately, how we may be able to help versus, this is what you need to do, right? And then once we get sort of buy-in from that demo or proof of concept or whatever, then we can kind of look at a proposal. And once there's a proposal, because you've gotten buy-in on the early stages, now it's pretty smooth and straightforward versus let me just, come at you with a product and a price. That's really hard. And I was there. It's a very transactional sell, and it's really hard to sell that way. Yeah.
I hear you on all of those things. And I definitely want to go back to ditching the pitch. Sure. But I think we kind of went a little bit further. Okay. What I wanted to get at was, with the cold call, yes, and I agree with what you said. It's a combination of efforts. There's some networking, there's some email, there's some social media, and then there's picking up the phone. And it's also understanding, with who are you going to pick up the phone, right? And who, like, how much of your effort is going to be towards the warm calls, towards the connecting, and then towards, that original, picking up the phone and the raw conversation. And I fully agree with you in that you want to have that back and forth. You don't want it to be like, shoved down their throat kind of thing. I totally understand that. But where I was going was, when you are picking up the phone, knowing who that market is and what your approach is there, right? What is the approach there? It's to get the appointment. It's not to do that crazy sales pitch. Right. I mean, some people might try that and it doesn't work. I mean, the point of the call is to get the appointment. And then once you're in the meeting, then you do the magic, right? Sure. So now I want you to tell me about ditch the pitch. Yeah. You're in the meeting. Okay, we made the call or not, right? Yeah. You got the meeting. Now we're going to talk about ditching the pitch and why you shouldn't use like a sales pitch. Yeah. Right? That's what ditching the pitch is. Not using the sales pitch. Absolutely. Approach. Yeah. So tell me about that.
Yeah, 100%. So I read a book recently, and I kind of was moving down this path myself already, but this book helped me. And the book is called Ditch the Pitch by a guy named Steve Yastrow. Really, really good book. And he references improv, comedy improv. And he says that a lot of times, right, in acting, there's a set script and there's a set kind of format or whatever. And then he found that with comedy, with improv, he was able to parallel that. And I see a lot of great value in what he said. And that is, you approach a situation with the same kind of perspective, right? You go in there with an idea that, you're going to be a little fluid. You're not going to just go in there with a set thing of words. And and just kind of roll with it a little bit. And so what I'm doing when I'm going into a conversation initially is I'm going to start with hopefully some, if there's time, if you get a vibe that there's a capability of a little bit of connecting with somebody, if you're in their office, hey, tell me about the pictures, or, if they're a business owner, how in the world did you start this? I'd love to hear, I know I read some stuff online, but I'd love to hear your perspective on how you started your company. Just get them talking about themselves. And then, maybe you have a minute or so to kind of talk a little bit about what you do, what you're looking to accomplish. But really then, and say part of the reason I'm here is I really want to understand some of the things that you're challenged with. From our initial call, I understood there was, some needs that you have. And, I think you got an incredible product or company here. But tell me about this. And then I'm going to start questions, but not like an interrogation, right? It's going to be conversational. And I'm going to ask questions like, if they say, yeah, we spend a lot of time getting out invoices, right? I might say, well, tell me more about that. What's the process look like? How does it start? And, who's responsible? And, and also I might ask things like, well, what happens when the invoices get out? What's the result of that? And, I'm digging in as many layers as I can to understand number one, it shows the client or potential client that I care. Number two, it shows them that I really got a strategic head here. And again, I'm going to have to make sure they understand I'm asking these questions because it'll allow me to properly help figure out what the right solution is for you, right? I could just throw something at you, but that means I'm just going to not giving it a lot of thought. I really want to come up with, and I also say that I've got a background in advertising. I have a very creative brain. I'm learning disabled, dyslexic. So my brain, because of that, learned how to be creative. And I think it's an asset that I have, where I look at situations a little different than the average person. I kind of look at it at different angles, and I'm just trying to be creative. So I'll say, hey, I'd love to understand, because the better I understand your challenges, the better I could come up with something for you here, potentially that we hopefully can help you. And if not, it's fine. But so getting that buy-in is really important. And then start asking questions in a very conversational way, not bullet points, taking some notes. Again, making sure you're digging in on those questions, not just say, okay, yeah, you got that. Okay, check. I got that answer. Okay, I got that answer. Check. No, just dig it in, right? Maybe it's 2-3 layers. Maybe it's 4 or 5 layers. And maybe they'll take you off track, but go down that path, right? You might have had some initial questions in your, laid out for yourself as a guideline, but, they take you on a different path. Go with it, because maybe that's going to lead to something even better, a better opportunity, if you know what I'm saying. So yeah, that kind of is my approach with.
I love it. Just showing that you care. And, we hear this, but people don't always do it, right? You hear it, but people don't act on it.
That's
and
right.
Just taking the time, and everyone is going to move, like all prospects move at a different pace, and understanding, person A is going to move at a different speed than person B and C. So people are all different, and understanding that. And it seems that you're good at this. You're great at this. So thank you. Now we're going to end off, but before we do, I just want to ask you, like, if you were to provide a couple of takeaways to business owners who are maybe struggling in sales, like, what would you tell them to do? I mean, you've shared so much already, but like, if there are a couple takeaways, what would those be?
It's the same takeaway that I like to speak about in general when I'm talking about connecting, networking, communicating, just living your life. Be others focused. Don't be self-focused, right? If you're thinking about, okay, what's in it for them, right? In sales, there's a phrase, it's an acronym, the WIFM, the what's in it for me, right? And that'll mean me. But if I'm going to see a customer, what's in it for them? What's the value? So I'm trying to think, okay, if I'm in this person's shoes, what can I do to help them? And really, really be empathetic with them on that, and not try to have an agenda when you go in, but have that mindset of how can I help? Number one, it'll make you selling a lot easier. I think everyone, when you think of sales, we think of the typical, and hopefully if any used car salesmen are listening in, they're not going to get offended, but the typical used car salesperson, right? This pushiness, right? Or the insurance broker salesperson. pushy. Now, I'm not saying that those people are all like that, but that's the perception we have, right? We're pushing a product, we're pushing a service. And knowing if you can go in there with a different perspective and really go in there with the mindset of how can it help others? How can it be of value for you? What can I do? And sometimes, by the way, when I'm going in to a meeting, I'm thinking, I've got some great stuff in my head from the years of experience I've got and a different diverse experience. I've got a lot of people in my network. If nothing more, they could get some of that from me. They could get perspective from me. Maybe nothing to do with what I'm marketing, the services that I'm providing. Or I can introduce them to somebody. Maybe they're looking to hire somebody. I know somebody in the network that I can introduce them to. So I'm always looking, what can I do to add value and to help serve? And that makes going in with business development or sales a lot easier. You get to sleep at night because now you're helping them, right? I heard from one of my favorite books is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And he says, if you know what people want, they'll move heaven on earth to get it. So just find out what they want, and then you can help them versus trying to push what you want to do because you're trying to hit a quota or you've got sales goals that you're trying to hit for the year. So that applies to business owners, sales professional. It doesn't matter. The concept is the same.
Yeah, no, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing those tips. And we need to do this again in the future. This is awesome. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. It was an honor to be on with you here.
Thank you.